Hi, my name is Vanclooster. I'm a professor at the Faculty of Bioscience Engineering and the Earth and Life Institute of UCLouvain, and I will be your lecturer for this flipped class on soil hydrodynamics. This flipped class aims introducing you in the exciting world of modeling soil hydrodynamic processes, and this as a basis for soil and environmental science and engineering. We focus in this class on soils, so we first need to define what are soils and why we are focusing on them. Soils are the upper layer of terrestrial earth systems, situated at the interface between the atmosphere and the lithosphere. They compose the skin of the earth. Soils are essential and critical components of the earth system. They develop multiple functions that are essential for life on earth. At the occasion of the International Year of Soils in 2015, the UN World Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, listed the critical functions that are maintained by soils. These functions are illustrated in this picture. Obviously, soils are the basic substrate for plant growth and are therefore essential for agriculture and for food and fiber and energy production. But they also control the Earth's major biochemical cycles: the carbon cycle, the water cycle, the nutrient cycle. They are further the habitat of a wide spectrum of biota and control therefore also largely the biodiversity on Earth. They are also the support for all infrastructure that men have developed in the past and at present, and the many raw materials that are actually extracted from soils are used in the different economical sectors that humans have developed. For all these useful functions, it is of paramount importance to know the status of soils on Earth. Unfortunately, the different essential functions of soil are under pressure, and this constrains life on Earth. A publication of the American Association for the Advancement of Science illustrates the troubles of soils. In this rather overloaded picture, extracted from this publication, a mapping is given of the area of the terrestrial soils that is subjected to high and very high soil degradation. Soil areas are mapped that are subjected to climate constraints, physical constraints, and chemical constraints. And this corresponds to the different colors in the map. For instance, all the red areas correspond to soils that are subjected to considerable wind and water erosion. All the yellow areas corresponds to areas with low nutrient content. And further, for some specific locations, illustrations are given of these pressures and constraints. Apart from the important share of terrestrial surfaces that is subjected to soil degradation and to the many physical and chemical constraints, we see illustrations of places where important erosion occurs, where soil nutrients are depleted, where soils are subjected to salinization, where soils are subjected to desertification, where soils are subjected to heavy metal pollution, another type of pollution, or where soils are subjected to compaction. All these pressure reduces the functionality of soils and reduces its overall soil quality. Many of these pressures, illustrated in the previous slides, are anthropogenic, which means that they are induced by human activity. With the projected increase of global population for the coming decades, the increase of the illustrated pressures and the constraints on soils is also very likely. Therefore, appropriate soil and environmental protection and management programs should be implemented. Soil protection and management programs are designed to maintain the functionality and the overall quality of soils. Soil rehabilitation programs are designed to restore its functionality and quality on these places where the soils has been polluted, compacted, degraded, salinized. For designing such appropriate soil and environmental protection and management, the dynamics of soils and the processes that drive these dynamics needs to be correctly understood. We cannot engineer a system if we do not know how it works. Therefore, we need to understand the soil processes that change its properties and its behavior. This means that we need to be able to describe how soil processes will evolve in space and time. when soils are subjected to different drivers and different pressures. But also we need to be able to describe these dynamics for hypothetical scenarios, such as those we can change by appropriate soil management and protection. A framework allowing to make such descriptions is based on the modeling of soil processes. Soil models allow to integrate knowledge of functional behavior of soils with data to make qualitative or quantitative descriptions of the soil behavior. They link theory and data to produce information that can be used for management and engineering. An interesting thing about models is that they can be used for testing hypotheses or for evaluating observations of soil behavior that have been made in the past, but they can therefore be used to validate the knowledge base that already is used in the engineering or management of soils. But more importantly, in particular from the engineering and management point of view, models can be used to evaluate how soils will evolve when hypothetical management or engineering scenarios are deployed. They can therefore be used for scenario analysis and optimize the management and the engineering that is needed to maintain the essential soil functions. In this course, we will follow a modeling approach. We will set the basis for modeling three essential processes in soils. We will look to water transport, we will look to chemical transport in soils, and we will look to water transport in groundwater system. The reason for selecting these three soil processes is rather obvious. Many of the soil processes are determined by soil water. Soil water determines the separation of precipitation between infiltration and runoff, and therefore strongly controls the hydrological cycle of terrestrial surfaces. But soil water is also a major variable determining root water uptake, and hence crop production. It further controls soil biological and chemical processes, and hence interacts with the major biogeochemical cycles, including the carbon cycle, which is of paramount importance for the climate system. Soil water also determines the soil heat properties, and therefore has a major impact on the energy balance of terrestrial systems. It is therefore obvious that a rigorous modeling approach for soil water processes is a very strong asset for supporting soil and environmental management and engineering. We will also look in this course to chemical transport in soils, in particular the chemical transport with the soil water, as what we call the solid transport. Indeed, soil water will always be loaded by many chemical constituents, many of which are generated through natural mineralization processes. Yet others are introduced by human activities and could be considered as pollutants. Understanding the filtering capacity of soils and the way how soils protect underlying groundwater bodies will need a good understanding of solid transport in soils. But knowledge of the solid transport process is also important to describe how dissolved crop nutrients in soil migrates towards the root system, or how soil salinity builds up, or how salts can be leached from saline soils, or how pollutants can be leached from contaminated soils, or how chemical soil weathering enriches the aquatic systems. Finally, we also show how similar concepts can be developed for modeling transport in groundwater system. The course should allow giving you an initiation to the model transport processes in groundwater systems. Let's illustrate this soil modeling framework for a simple example. Suppose we are interested in an agriculture soil, which is a soil that has been developed for soil crop production. We may develop a conceptual model of this soil as illustrated in this figure. In the example, the soil crop production is considered to be affected by the soil hydrological processes. If the soil is too dry, soil water stress will occur and crop production will be reduced. If the soil is too wet, we will have soil anaerobiosis, which means that there is insufficient oxygen to support crop production. The crop production will therefore be affected by the soil water content in the soil. If rain occurs, water may infiltrate in the soil and increase the soil water storage. If the stock increases in dry soils, more water will become available for root water uptake and therefore also for transpiration and hence crop production. Yet the exact quantity of water that is available will also depend on the intensity of the precipitation and on the quantity of water that may be lost by surface runoff, or by evaporation, or by drainage. And all these processes vary in time and interact with each other. They will be controlled by soil properties, but also by crop properties. Hence, if we would try to change the soil water status when the soil is too dry, for instance by irrigation, or in the case the soil is too wet, by artificial drainage, and if we would like to do this in a correct way, we need to know how much water needs to be irrigated or to be drained. For this we need to be able to model the water storage in the soil of this agriculture plot, and this in a dynamic way, and in terms of the soil-specific properties and the crop properties. The system that we therefore try to model in this case is the soil plant system of the agriculture production unit. The system function that we are interested in is the crop water uptake, sustaining agriculture crop growth, and the possible pressure that is exerted on the system is a shortage of soil water due to drought or the excess of soil water due to flooding. The management or engineering option that we consider in this example is irrigation and drainage, and the soil system that we use in this case, soil system model that we use in this case, is the field scale soil water balance model. The role of this model is the assessment of soil water requirements for different irrigation and drainage scenarios, and for different soil crop properties, and different variable climates. In the next video, the modeling framework that we will use in this course will be more elaborated. But before going to do that, let's do a very small quiz.